Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Oh, hi, Melanie. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I just have some questions about this paper for your class. Do you have a second to talk about it now?
Oh, yes, no problem. I have about 20 minutes before my next class. Will that be enough time?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so the thing is, I'm writing my paper on the history of jazz in New York City.
All right, well, that's a pretty broad subject.
Well, actually, I'm focusing on a specific decade, the 50s, and I'm only doing it on a few specific artists.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that seemed a bit, too ambitious for a 10-page paper.
Yeah. No, it's not the subject I'm having trouble with. Actually, the paper is practically writing itself. I mean, I've got a lot to say, and it's going pretty well. The thing is, I have this idea that might make it better, and I was wondering if there's any way I could get an extension. I mean, I know it's due next week, right?
That's right, on Monday. But I don't understand. It sounds like you're doing so well. Why do you need more time?
Yeah, well, I could write the paper as it is and turn it in on time, and it would be fine. But I was just talking to one of my friends whose family has lived in New York forever, and it turns out that her grandfather was actually there in the period of jazz I'm writing about. I mean, he was a jazz musician, and he actually, personally knew the artists I'm writing about.
You're kidding. Well, that's a coincidence.
Yeah, I know, it's cool, right? So anyway, that's why I was wondering if I could get an extension, because I thought it would be really great if I could, interview him for my paper.
Ah.
But I don't think I can meet with him until early next week, so...
Ah, I see. Well, it would certainly add a new dimension to your paper, wouldn't it? Have you talked to this gentleman yet?
No. But I talked to my friend, just, ran the idea past her, and she said he would probably love to do it. But, he's busy until next week.
Okay, well, yeah. I think that in this case, we can definitely extend your deadline until, let's say, Friday next week.
Okay, that would be great.
But just to be fair, why don't you turn in an outline of your paper on the due date?
The outline? Oh, that's no problem. It's basically done, except for the parts about the interview.
Oh, yeah, the interview. Could you have the questions ready then, too? The ones you're planning on asking?
Sure, yeah. I can do that, too.
And then I'll expect the final draft next Friday.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure, I'm looking forward to reading it.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Hi, Professor. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about the class you're teaching next semester, the course on Polish drama. I was thinking of taking it.
Well, that's an upper division course. You don't look familiar to me. Are you a student in this department?
No, actually I'm not.
Okay. Have you had other classes in the Slavic languages department here or somewhere else?
No, that's the thing. I was just wondering how good my Polish would have to be, whether the class is taught in Polish or not.
Well, you'd have to have some knowledge of it. By that level, a lot of the students are quite fluent. Plus, there are some native speakers in the department. And we don't plan for it to happen, but it's pretty common for the discussions to kind of move in and out of English and Polish, and it can be difficult to follow. So, how well do you speak Polish?
Not so great. It's just that my father's from there, so I'm interested in learning about, Polish history, Polish culture. Plus, I'm studying drama. I'll probably major in it. I love plays, so I thought your course might be perfect.
To be honest with you, you have to realize that we'll be watching videos of performances and maybe, if we can swing it, even watch a live performance, and those won't necessarily be in translation. Also, texts are sometimes available in translation, but even then some references will be to the original. I'd hope you'd be fairly confident in reading.
To be honest, it sounds totally over my head.
You know what? I believe they'll be offering a survey course on Polish literature. Let me check here. Yes, I thought it was being offered this time. Professor Jaworski's teaching it. Let's see, it covers the major works, epic romantic poetry, the novels, and it does cover one or two plays.
And this is in English?
Yes, you'll be reading mostly English translations, and the discussions will be in English.
Novels and poetry.
They'll provide you with a great historical context for the plays, so when you do get to them, you're going to really have a feel for the times they lived in, so to speak. Plus, this course might also give you the impetus to learn more Polish. Get it to the level where you'd be ready for the other class.
What are the speaker's main... Listen to a conversation between a student and a music director.
Ms. Harper?
Yes, can I help you?
Hi, my name's Eric Patterson. I'm a journalism student. I wanted to ask you about the orchestra.
I'm sorry, Eric, but the orchestra is only open to music majors.
Really? Well, see...
But the policy's changing next year. After that, if you've taken 3 music courses, you will be able to audition.
Well, I have taken some music courses, and I do play the double bass, so maybe that's something to think about. But actually, I was here about something else.
Oh, sorry. It's just I get that question all the time, so...
That's okay. Thing is, I work for Magna, the school paper, and I'm reporting on last week's concert. Now, I went to it, and I really enjoyed it, but now I'm looking for some background knowledge.
Well, I can refer you to some of the students in the orchestra if you'd like a young musician's point of view.
I guess that might be helpful, but I'm really looking for a little bit of scholarly perspective. Some history of the music that was performed that evening, where it originated, how it's developed over time.
Well, some of our musicians kind of specialize in Appalachian music. In fact, that's part of the reason we performed it. So you really should talk to them, too. Okay, so we were playing Appalachian music from communities in the Appalachian Mountain regions of the United States.
All right.
Do you really think you can keep this all in your head?
Oh, don't worry. All I need are a few key facts. I'm sure I can keep them straight until I get back to my dorm.
So, the music is generally based on folk ballads and instrumental dance tunes. It started with Scottish and Irish immigrants who brought over their styles of music. It's called Anglo-Celtic.
So, people brought their musical traditions with them.
Well, this Anglo-Celtic music was considered an important link to the past for these people, which you can see in the way that Appalachian singers sing ballads. They have sort of a nasal quality to them, like in Celtic ballads. In their new land, some of the lyrics were updated, to refer to the new locations and the occupations that settlers had in America. But at the same time, lots of ballads were still about castles and royalty, lords and ladies, stuff like that, which is what they were about originally.
Okay, and was that some sort of banjo I saw on stage during the performance?
Yes, we're lucky that one of our students, Stuart Telford, has a 19th century banjo, a real antique. He's able to play in most of the traditional styles. Did you know that banjos are of African American origin and that settlers in Appalachia adopted banjos for their folk music? They became very common in traditional Appalachian music, along with guitars and violins, of course. But if you want to learn about that banjo, talk to Stuart.
That's great, Ms. Harper. Thanks a lot. Now, can you recommend any sources where I could look up more about this?
Sure, I have a great book. A student has it today, but you can borrow it tomorrow if you'd like.
Listen. Why does the student go to the woman?
I have some good news for you. One of the students who was signed up for the summer term at the field station next year won't be attending after all. Your name's first on the waiting list. So if you still want to do it, the space is available.
Oh, that's terrific.
You were also interested in doing an independent research project next summer, right?
Yeah, on salt marsh restoration. But that was before, when I thought I wasn't going to get into the field station.
Well, you can still do it if you want. I looked over your application for the independent research project, and it looks strong. I approved it. And you'd have even more resources there at the field station, so...
The field station and an independent study. But the summer term is a few weeks shorter than a regular term.
Well, it's up to you. You'd have to work hard, but I think you can do very well. Professor Garfield, one of the professors over at the field station...
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yes, well, Professor Garfield's been doing research on salt marshes for years, assessing human impact and methods of salt marsh restoration. He's willing to oversee your project.
Wow, that's too good an opportunity to pass up.
I thought you'd say that. When I spoke with Dr. Garfield, he suggested you take a particular course he'll be teaching here in the spring. It's called Advanced Topics in Salt Marsh Management. The course looks at salt marsh ecology in depth, and it also focuses on factors that stress salt marsh systems and how to assess and monitor the level of stress.
And that background information will feed right into my project on salt marsh restoration. This is so great.
Oh, one more thing. Do you know John Arnold?
Not really, but he lives in my dorm. Why?
John's another ecology student who will be at the field station next summer. I approved an independent research project for him, too. Initially, he had the same concern as you. But anyway, his topic will be similar to yours. He'll be researching how bridges and culverts that have been installed to allow tidal waters to move underneath roads between the sea and the salt marshes, well, they're often too small.
I guess that'd result in not enough tidal water flowing into the marshes to maintain the natural vegetation, right?
Exactly. And he'll be looking at how to determine the right size. So I was thinking he might be a good choice for a summer.
Listen to a conversation between a student and her academic advisor.
Hi, Professor Jones. Thanks for seeing me.
No problem, Laura. How was your summer break?
It was great, but the fact is, it's made me reconsider my academic plans.
Oh, really? Nothing too dramatic, I hope?
No. At least I hope not.
What do you mean, exactly?
Well, I just spent the summer working on a Native American reservation, a Navajo reservation in Arizona, and I was fascinated. So now I want to study the Navajo language, their history, religion. I want to go back next summer, too, and maybe even spend a semester there, some kind of internship or independent study.
Wow, sounds like you're really enthusiastic. But you were majoring in sociology, and I seem to recall that for your senior project, you were doing something with education?
Right. I've done some research on the public schools in the northeastern states, how they've been affected by changes in population, immigration trends during the past 50 years. But now I really want to study the culture of the Navajo people.
Well, there are a couple of options, depending on your priorities. Say, how'd you end up on a reservation in Arizona, anyway?
Well, a friend of mine took a job there in a summer school program, and they had another opening. Someone canceled at the last minute. I thought it would be just a big adventure, but it turned out to be much more than that.
I see. But anyway, as I was saying, your options depend on what your priorities are and on exactly what you want to study.
Like I said, Navajo culture?
Well, let's see if we can be more specific. If you want to study the Navajo language, learn about their religion, their history, that's part of cultural anthropology.
No, I really don't want to change majors at this point. I love sociology, and I really want to graduate in 4 years.
Okay, well, now I see what your priorities are. So, from a sociological perspective, since you're interested in education, you can stay with that. Change your research topic to the Native American experience with public education, the effect it's had. And you could take sociology courses on religion or the role of minorities in society, again, focusing your research on the Navajo.
I hadn't thought about that angle. Sounds intriguing. And all the courses I've already taken would still count toward my degree?
I'd have to check. And we might need to plan carefully to make sure all your degree requirements are met. But I don't see any problems.
Great. And then I can pick up the language and culture courses as electives.
Listen to does the woman visit her? Why does
Listen to a conversation between a student and an employee at the registrar's office.
Morning. How can I help you?
Well, I'm kind of confused about my schedule. I printed it out this morning, but one of the classes I registered for is missing.
Okay, let's see if we can figure this out. What's your name?
Lisa Johnson.
All right. I'm bringing up your schedule on the computer. It looks like you're registered for Introduction to Astronomy, Survey of American Literature, and Introduction to Government and Politics. Is that right?
Well, yes, but I also registered for a language class, Level 1 Japanese. Did they, maybe cancel it?
I doubt it. The Japanese classes are quite popular. Well, let's take a look at the list of Japanese classes being offered this semester just to make sure. What section did you register for?
I don't remember the section number, but it's the one that meets at 11.
That would be Section 5. Well, according to this, the class is completely full. Are you sure you registered online, right?
Yeah.
Did you get a confirmation message?
What do you mean?
Well, once you've successfully registered for a class, the computer gives you a message saying you're in.
Oh, you mean that message at the bottom of the screen that says you are now registered for this class? Actually, I didn't get that message. I got one that said instructor's signature required. I thought I just needed to get the professor's signature on the first day of class.
Well, you do, but the professor might not sign it. It depends on how full the class is and how many additional students the professor is willing to let in.
So that means I'm not registered for the class. Not unless the professor signs me in. What should I do now?
Let me give you the form the professor needs to sign. Go to the class on the first day, get there early so you can talk to the professor before class starts. Find out if he or she is willing to let you in. If so, bring the signed form back here and we'll register you for the class. If not, well, you'll have to find a different class. I'd start looking for alternatives now, just in case.
What do you think my chances are of getting into this class?
Students often add and drop classes once the semester begins, so there's a real chance a seat will open up. But of course, there are no guarantees.
It's just that I need a language class to graduate, and that's the only Japanese class that fits my schedule.
Yes, but according to our records, you're only in your first year here. If you can't take the class this semester, you've still got time.
I know. I was just hoping to take care of my requirements earlier rather than later.
I understand.
Listen to a conversation between a student and his English professor.
Hi, Bob. How's it going? Are you enjoying the Introduction to Literature class?
Yeah, it's great. Araby, that short story by James Joyce we read last week, it was awesome.
Glad you liked it. Most of Joyce's work is very complex. A lot of students say that he's hard to understand. Normally, you wouldn't tackle Joyce in an intro class, but I like to give my first-year students a taste of his style, his psychological approach to literature, mainly because it influenced other writers. I only wish we had more class time to discuss it.
Me too. So why did you pick Araby instead of some other story?
Well, first you should know that Araby is one of 15 short stories by Joyce in a book called Dubliners. All the stories are related to one another and are set in the same time period. But Araby is the easiest one to follow. Though all the stories in the collection are written in stream of consciousness, which, as you know, means they're told through the narrator's thoughts, through an inner monologue, as opposed to dialogue or an objective description of events. But Araby is easier because it's linear. The story unfolds chronologically.
Still, I wish we could read whole novels by Joyce and discuss them in class.
That's what happens in my Master Writer class.
Master Writer class?
Yeah, I teach one on Joyce every spring. It's such a privilege, spending an entire term delving into a single body of work. And my students, they bring so much insight to the table that it's easy to forget who the professor is.
Oh, wow. That could actually solve my dilemma, what I originally wanted to ask you. I'm working on my schedule for next term, and I've got room for one more course, and I'd like to take more literature. Could I take your Master Writer class on Joyce?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned, Master Writer's an advanced seminar, so students need to get a strong foundation in literary theory and criticism before I let them enroll.
But I've gotten really good grades on all my papers so far. I'm sure I can keep up. Couldn't you make an exception?
Your grades are excellent, but in our intro class, you're reviewing the basics, like plot, setting, and character, and getting your first real exposure to different literary styles.
But why do I have to study different styles to understand Joyce's novels?
There are a lot of little details involved in interpreting literature, and like with Joyce, his novels have very unique structures. The only way to appreciate how unique they are is by studying a variety of authors.
Oh, okay. Well, so could you suggest a different literature class then?
Sure. There's Dr. Klein's course on 19th century novels. It's more focused than the class you're in now, but it'll build on your current knowledge base and give you the background you need. That, plus a couple more foundational classes, and you'll definitely be ready for my seminar.
Sweet. Thanks.
Listen to a conversation between a student and her public relations professor.
Hi, Professor Gordon. I really learned a lot from your lecture, the one about analyzing all those different segments of the population. Oh, the official term's audience, right? I never imagined that one company could have over 30 audiences to communicate with.
Yeah, a lot of students are taken aback by this, and some public relations consultants don't figure it out till they've worked in the field a while.
Everyone thinks public relations, PR's easy, but there's a lot to it. You really got to know what you're doing.
Absolutely. So, Stacy, your email implied that you needed my advice about graduate school?
No, since my undergraduate degree will be in public relations, I've already decided to get a master's degree in marketing. Sorry I wasn't clear. My issue is I've got 2 required courses and 2 electives. I'm trying to figure out which elective courses to take. My advisor suggested economics and accounting, but I'm not really sure.
About?
Well, I endured accounting and economics in high school. I barely stayed awake. They were so...
Okay, I hear you. You say you wanted a master's in marketing. You've got 1 more semester till graduation. Have you taken any marketing courses yet?
No, I figured I've got the marketing basics already since I've taken every PR and communications course offered here.
Well, there's some overlap between PR and marketing, but there are important differences too. Marketing focuses on selling your product or service, attracting customers through advertising, and also building relationships with customers. That's what a marketing department does. PR is all about, it involves relationships too. That's why I'm saying the 2 fields overlap. But in PR, you're developing relationships with a wider range of audiences.
Right, like employees, suppliers, the media. I do understand this in theory, but aren't you still selling your product, just in a different way?
Not necessarily. Okay. Do you remember that PR strategy I alluded to the other day? The one our university uses, a strategy that doesn't overlap with its marketing strategy?
You mean how the university invites local residents to attend certain lectures and classes for free?
Yeah. This cultivates a sense of goodwill and helps the university avoid becoming isolated from the larger community. Bringing neighbors into our classrooms is good PR, but it's not marketing, since our neighbors aren't our customers for the most part.
That's why I want to focus on marketing in graduate school. Wouldn't having expertise in PR and marketing give me more career options?
Yeah, but you'll also want to enjoy your work. So for your electives, why don't you take advertising principles and intro to marketing, which I teach? This way, you'd find out if marketing's something you really want to pursue. Graduate school tuition's expensive, and these courses will give you a good overview of the field before committing yourself.
I wish my advisor had suggested those courses.
Well, I'm someone who's worked in both marketing and PR, so I can offer a different perspective than someone who only teaches.
Why does the woman go to see the professor? Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Hi, Professor Archer. You know how in class last week you said that you were looking for students who were interested in volunteering for your archaeology project?
Of course. Are you volunteering?
Yes, I am. It sounds really interesting. But, do I need to have any experience with these kinds of projects?
No, not really. I assume that most students taking the introductory level class will have little or no experience with archaeological research, but that's okay.
Oh, good. That's a relief. Actually, that's why I'm volunteering for the project, to get experience. What kind of work is it?
Well, as you know, we're studying the history of the campus this semester. This used to be an agricultural area, and we already know that where the main lecture hall now stands, there once were a farmhouse and barn that were erected in the late 1700s. We're excavating near the lecture hall to see what types of artifacts we find. You know, things people used in the past that got buried when the campus was constructed. We've already begun to find some very interesting items, like old bottles, buttons, pieces of clay pottery.
Buttons and clay pottery? Did the old owners leave in such a hurry that they left their clothes and dishes behind?
That's just one of the questions we hope to answer with this project.
Wow. And it's all right here on campus.
That's right. No traveling involved. I wouldn't expect volunteers to travel to a site, especially in the middle of the semester. We expect to find many more things, but we do need more people to help.
So, how many student volunteers are you looking for?
I'm hoping to get 5 or 6. I've asked for volunteers in all the classes I teach, but no one's responded. You're the first person to express interest.
Well, it sounds like it could be a lot of work. Is there any way I can use the experience to get some extra credit in class? I mean, can I write a paper about it?
I think it'll depend on what type of work you do in the excavation, but I imagine we can arrange something. Well, actually, I've been considering offering extra credit for class because I've been having a tough time getting volunteers. Extra credit is always a good incentive for students.
And how often would you want the volunteers to work?
We're asking for 3 or 4 hours per week, depending on your schedule. A senior researcher, I think you know John Franklin, my assistant, is on site every day.
Sure, I know John. By the way, will there be some sort of training?
Yes, I want to wait till Friday to see how many students volunteer, and then I'll schedule a training class next week at a time that's convenient for everyone.
Okay, I'll wait to hear from you. Thanks a lot for accepting me.